Welcome to Blue Monday, coming at you this week on a Wednesday because we like to keep you on your toes, or is it because we've just been celebrating that Everton win so much over the weekend? I'm joined, as ever, by Dave. We're going to do a little bit on new ground later on, but it would be a bit remiss of us not to talk about the first Everton win, wouldn't it? So, Dave, we haven't spoken about the game, have we? Because we've not seen it since the weekend. So, what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it was. I think it showed us a lot that Everton haven't shown so far this season. I think it was an interesting first half to interpret. I think because a lot of criticism towards it, what I've read towards it, a lot of criticism where Crystal Palace could have easily got out of sight in that first half. I thought, midfield wise, they were playing really, really well, some really good stuff against us, and I think that. It looked concerning to me when they started to dominate possession as well. It looked like they were getting the ball into areas that we struggled to maintain them from sort of creating chances and things like that. But I think there was a lot of tenacity in that performance. I felt, particularly in the first half. I thought that these lads sort of stayed there with patience. For any, and if you didn't know it was a Goodison, you'd think it was an away game once again. But I know we've touched upon that quite a lot this season. And to get it to half time, 1-0 down. I mean, look, any person around me will be saying, "I'd take a draw here. I'd absolutely take a draw here." And I mean, obviously, it'd be another game that we drop points against at Goodison Park, which is, it'd increase even more concerning that we've had so far this season, and not having the win going into October without a win in the league so far. You'd still be in the bottom three. I actually think that probably won't be appreciated enough. There's a lot of pressure on the players there, as well as all of us going back to Goodison again. I mean, we've spoken about it a little bit, haven't we? About how Everton have looked at Goodison, how we've all felt about Goodison, given the fact that it's the last year there. All sorts of different emotions comes through that, certainly for me anyway, when I'm in Goodison. But I think the second half was much more of an Everton-like performance that we've been used to in years gone by, when we've actually been a much more positive side. There was momentum about it. There was a lot of players sort of getting us involved. They wanted the ball a lot more often. It wasn't route one again, which has always been something that has been critical of. Well, not Pickford, but Dyche is quite clearly that's. Yeah. I think that's his top of his list when he's preparing for the game, is how can we get the ball up quickly to Calvert-Lewin to flick on to whoever's in and around him. And of course, getting to see Dyche on hand again at Goodison was a delight to see. So ultimately, I think we deserved 3 points for what we did in that second half, and I think we showed a side to Everton we haven't seen for a while, and that was being able to get back to something that we've very much struggled to. And I think it was 2 years since we've come from behind to win a game as well. So yeah, I don't think there's anything too critical to tell to say the story about that game, other than the first half. And but even then, when we conceded, I think we stayed calm in that as well.
Yeah, I think the Crystal Palace factor came into play a little bit as well. They've not got the best record. Goodison have got a good mate who's a Palace fan, and they've very much got the same outlook as us, that basically if your team is on a bad run, you want to play Palace. The way we say, if your team's on a bad run, you want to play Everton. So I said weeks ago, I think after the Brighton game, I said Crystal Palace would be our first win. I was kind of half messing, but kind of half thought it would be. And it turned out that way. But yeah, to turn around a 1-goal deficit, to turn around any deficit and win, something we're not done under Dyche at all, is it? And also, I think that's the first game. I think Paddy said this on Monday. I think this is the first game we've won under Sean Dyche where the opposition have scored or something stupid like that.
Yeah, well, like I said, he wasn't our manager 2 years ago, and I did read that it was 2 years ago the last time we've come from behind to win a game. That didn't make sense.
But the fact is, the first game we've won where the opposition have scored is a bit mad as well.
Yeah,
really, really crazy stuff. Just to go back to the first half, don't want to dwell on it too much, but I didn't really touch on it on post-match because I wanted to keep up the positivity, because it was quite nice to get to the pub and we won and everyone was happy. But you could see 10 minutes in that what we were doing wasn't working with the midfield, wasn't like you said. You could see the midfield was getting overrun. And I said to my dad straight away, 10 minutes in here, you should drop McNeil back just to tighten up the midfield. feels like we rode our luck a little bit there. And as you said, Palace could have punished us a bit more, probably should have done, given the sort of dominance they had in that half. But I'm hoping that's a bit of a turning point for Dyche now, that he made the substitution on half time, which is something he very rarely does. Like, I gave him stick against Leicester for bringing off Lindstrom too early. I think he got it spot on at the weekend. The change paid off straight away.
Yeah,
Lindstrom was having a shocker. His attitude didn't look right. He had to come off. So I think he played that spot on. So I'm hoping that he's sort of seen now he's got options that he can make proactive changes. Basically, I guess it was reactive to a degree because we're 1-0 down, but to make a change at half time, any change is a proactive one, in my opinion, because, when you get to 65, 70 minutes, they're all reactive changes then, because you're just reacting to what's just gone on. I think at half time, you can still do something. You can still sort of make a proactive change. I think that's what he did. So I'm hoping this will be a little change. We'll see on Saturday, obviously, but I'm hoping this will be a little change in his mentality to think, I've got different options here. I can affect games with my substitutions and the different players I've got available, instead of just being right, we get to a point in the game, we try and see it out. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think just going back to what you initially said there about being spot on, about making a substitution, certainly at half time as well, is right to give him credit for. I think rightly so. I think many of us, most fans, I would say a high percentage of fans, have been critical of Sean Dyche, many of which wanted them gone. One win in 90 minutes against Crystal Palace, where we've come from 1-0 behind to win 2-1, is not going to change that from my perspective of him. He still needs to do a hell of a lot more. But it did seem to me like the light bulb above his head actually turned on at a certain point, thinking, do you know what? I've got an alternative here. I can perhaps change this game myself. I can't just rely on those 11 lads who I've put out there and then just be as stubborn as to think, yeah, we're going to change this. It's going to happen. I'm determined to stick with what I've got, because in training, when we looked at Crystal Palace, this is the best way of getting 3 points against them. This is the best way of creating opportunities. This is the best way of scoring goals. I think finally, well, I say finally, maybe not. Maybe he's done it at certain points, but certainly in his time at Everton, I've not seen him, in probably want of a better term, concede that he wasn't always right about this.
Yeah,
I think very much the taking Lindstrom off, I think that was an indication that he finally thought. You imagine him turning to Stone and to Woan and thinking, do you know what, lads, we'll go with this for one time. Let's just try this. Let's just dip my toe in the water a tiny touch and see if there's anything different that might actually allow us to succeed, rather than sticking with what we've got and hoping it changes, and him just standing on the touchline, on the sideline, screaming his head off, because that's generally what he does. He was still doing that, of course, which is his style as a manager. But yeah, I didn't think I'd be saying it, Les, after the first 5 games, but he deserves a lot of credit, I think, for what happened there at the weekend, and the momentum that we had in that second half as well. It felt like we were consistently going to create chances. Dare to say it felt like a goal was coming as well, and it's been some time that I've felt that about Everton at Goodison.
Yeah.
You think back to games, even last season, where you're like, when the crowd drops behind Everton, it's like it's something that seriously affects the opposition, and they find themselves sort of isolated, and they're not too sure what to do. And that's through how positive we've been when we've had to do that sort of thing. I think we've struggled with that generally under Dyche. Go back to Lampard, Benitez. We've struggled with that ourselves as fans, as well as obviously what's happened on the pitch. It felt like a much more traditional, conventional Everton that we've not seen for a long time. That against Palace, and if you can put that in a bottle and be able to, so everyone sort of refers to that or drinks it every weekend, whatever way in which you look at it, then Everton are going to have a positive season at Goodison. I think I'm confident in saying that. It remains to be seen, like we said there, if he goes and does that against Newcastle, who are a much more difficult opponent than Crystal Palace. But I mean, there was a lot of what he did. I've no idea why he doesn't start to Rabunum. Because Mangala still. I mean, I think the jury's out on him, isn't it? Well, look, on all of them really, because we've seen him.
I think I think Mangala's been sound. I don't think he's really put a foot wrong. He's not going to be a spectacular player, is he? But I think for that role that he does, he just sits there and does just the basic stuff. Really, I think he does it really well. I think he's definitely getting better each game.
I think you're right. I think there's a different facet to a game that we compare to a Dyche in terms of, you'd often say Dyche is limited to what he does, but what he does is very, very effective, and that's why he's been a really good player for us each time we've had him. Mangala, dare to say, has probably got another step above that, like you say there. I think he's how old is he? He's what, mid-20s, is he?
24, 25, I think.
It still looks to me like if you were to say to me that the lad was his early 20s, I'd be like, you know what, I can understand.
26, yeah.
26. I mean, he should be an age that knows better slightly in certain situations, like Leicester. Strongly, in my opinion, there when he started thinking that he was Zidane towards the end of the game and refused to lay a ball off. And look, fair enough, because if that comes off, what he's trying to do, beat a player or two and set Calvert-Lewin free, and we score and win a game and nick a game 1-0 maybe or 2-1. Then you're like, yeah, that's the kind of midfielder we want. But that's not Everton these days. Everton aren't at that advanced stage of a side that's able to do that and think, you know what, lads, let's properly go for this. Yeah. If that game was 1-1 at that stage, I don't think we've got a manager that had tried to push Everton to a point where they could get us on the counter attack. I think that he's very much, let's stick with this, lads. Let's just not get beat. We're at that stage of a season, getting into just October, where we're like, getting beat here. Things are starting to get really, really serious here. And you look at the bottom half of the Premier League table there. Everyone's still like, together, aren't they? What are we on 4 points there? Was it 5? We're on 4 or 5? 4, is it?
We're on 4 points. We're 4 points behind Bournemouth in 11th. 5 points behind Brighton in 9th. Then it starts to stretch out to Tottenham, Fulham, who are on 10, 11 points. So it's once you get past mid-table, it does start to then pull away from you. But I mean, just to pick up on that, I think that it's important to get a win, isn't it? Like we did at the weekend, because it that put us up to 16th, pushed Palace into the relegation zone, and it just made everything seem a lot better. You can kind of almost put the previous 5 games, or put 4 games, because that's 2 without getting beaten. Now 1 win, 1 draw. You kind of put that start of the season behind us a little bit. We did the same last season. We didn't win until our 6th game last year as well, which was Brentford away. So notoriously slow starters, it seems. Which if you can put that right, that's the difference between last season. That could have been the difference without points deductions between finishing 11th and 9th.
Yeah,
or something. It's massive. It's massive. So to write off those 4 games every year, that's not. You just can't keep doing that if you want to push on. But it just feels a lot better going into Newcastle now. It feels like a bit of pressure's off. It's obviously going to be a much different game. I just want to pick up quickly on thought Ashley Young had another good game. Thought he was good down at Leicester. Had a good game with Palace. He's going to have a tougher time, isn't he, at the weekend against Newcastle if he plays it right back, because he'll probably throw Anthony Gordon on him, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about our manager having different selections there. You're playing against a side that's got about 1,001 different options here, given the squad they've been able to put together, with the financial side they've got and things like that. And I think it's really interesting that Eddie Howe's still their manager, because I think there's been various occasions where they probably could have got rid of him and looked for somebody with a bit more of a name and stuff. So I think credit to him, but. You're absolutely right. I think he'll have to really. I hope he started earlier this week as homework against who we're playing here, because this is a big step up. I feel that we were getting some runs under Moyes where you'd feel that there's no way we lose this. There's no way we lose this. There's no way we'd lose this. Particularly at home, I think that was very much his forte as our manager. Well, generally managers are like that, aren't they? But I think Moyes he'd nail that to a T. It's interesting to see what Sean Dyche does with that. Now we've actually got a win on the board. How does he approach this? How does he go into this? When Everton started having the ball, we've seen against large chunks of that game against Leicester and Villa, we've seen Everton can really, really, attack sides if we do that. If we want to keep our foot going forward, if you're not, with Dyche, I feel like he puts a there's a hesitance in what he allows the players to do. I think that is ultimately as frustrating as anything else. I think we've seen, and like I said, at Villa, more chunks of that against Leicester, but certainly against Crystal Palace in the second half, would it actually come to fruition at the time where I'm standing there watching the game thinking, now's the time you properly put your foot down here. And it seems to me, I don't think it's any coincidence that it's happening every week or most games that we see. The players aren't, it's not by the players that I don't think the players are making a decision to say, you know what, lads, let's just hold back here, let's just step back, go with what we've got. If you go 1-0 up, or like we did against Villa, 2-0 up. When Everton went 2-0 up against Aston Villa, they had no idea what to do.
Yeah, that's right.
1-0 up against Leicester, no idea what to do. It's funny that Everton went 1-0 down for that decision to already be made by Dyche, if you get what I mean. So I feel as if with him as the manager, that's why I still have many reservations with him, because if Everton go 1-0 down, it's almost as if he's more comfortable with us going 1-0 down in games than he is.
He's back against the wall, isn't he?
Yeah, it just seems that's been his career as a manager, is backs against the wall. Let's see what we can do the other way. And I think that he hasn't fully appreciated what we've actually got there. I don't think many of us have. I don't think we've looked at that squad and thought, you know what? Like we mentioned just a bit earlier there about various options we've still got. You've got a bench there with players in who you can put on. It's almost like I said to you, that ball going lighting up on top of his head, thinking, do you know what? Got someone useful there who can come on instead of what I've just started with and stuck with them till 70 odd minutes before I'm still reluctant to make a change. He went and did it, and lo and behold, look what went and happened. So, if he had done that at Villa, say, you don't just have to sit back, and because obviously when you're playing away from home or when you're 1-0 up in a game, the opposition are going to come at you anyway because they need the equaliser, they need the goals.
Yeah.
Everton have got a side that can be built to counter-attack. When you've got Dyche one side, you've got McNeil there as well. You've got Harrison when he's on there. You've got Lindstrom. You've got players who, in a counter-attacking sense, can really trouble sides. Now, I understand then why you don't have more possession than the opposition at Goodison. I completely understand why people get frustrated with that. But Everton have got a side that can play that very well. They can put that into their hands. It's very much why we were more successful away from home last season. Dyche starts to get that. If he starts to expand a little bit on what he's able to do as a manager, I don't think Everton should have any concern this season. But obviously we've only done it for one game so far.
Yeah, it does. As I said, it does feel like a lot brighter now. You can see. I mean, I said over the last few games, really. I think from after the Tottenham game, I think every game has had elements to it where it's like there's something to go with it. There's something to look forward to. It's not all bad. My worry for me is at the weekend, though, he's the big decision he makes is a starting lineup for me. As you said before, first half against Palace on midfield got overrun. So Decore and Mangala, they weren't getting any help from the three in front of them, and McNeil and Dyche. Sorry, and Dyche does help back, but McNeil and Lindstrom weren't really helping out the midfield. Now, Palace play a 3-4-3, so it was effectively more or less 2-on-2 there, and they were getting overrun. My worry with Newcastle is they play a 4-3-3. Now, if he goes with the same midfield he did against Palace, you've got Tonali, Guimaraes, and Joe Linton. They will run riot in that midfield. If he goes with Decore and Mangala, I think that would be a big mistake. I think he needs to change the starting lineup. I'm not convinced he will, because he'll probably go with, well, that worked the weekend. And it's kind of his preferred thing. But I think he's got to look at their midfield at the weekend, because that is a good midfield, and that could cause havoc if he just plays those two in there. So for me, that's the big decision he's got to make before kickoff. Hopefully he does his homework and takes a look at that, because I think to play 4-2-3-1 against a 4-3-3 is tough anyway. If you're not getting one of those three to basically go into a 4-3-3 when you defend it, don't want to go into tactics too much.
Yeah,
but it's a big thing to ask two players to counter three if you're not getting any help from anywhere else across the park. So for me, that's the big decision he's got to make. It's a big game, but there's a bit more pressure off now, isn't there? I think if we come out of this one with a draw, because they are a good side, I don't think we could have too much to argue about there, could we?
No, I'd probably get hammered for this. I'd take a draw right now if you to offer it.
Oh no, I would as well.
It's a powerful side, this, and what you said there about that midfield area is one of massive concern. we haven't got the most pragmatic of managers either, have we? Let's be fair. And I'd still have massive concerns with Decore. I think Decore, as we know, we've seen him stink the place out, but then somehow he's found a way back that we're all like, he's crucial to us, this lad. I'm not too sure as he continues his career and edges towards, what is he now? He must be edging towards his 30s.
I think he's into his 30s, isn't he?
Is he early 30s now, is he?
Yeah, I think he's in there. 31, yeah.
Yeah, 31 years old. He's I don't know, these days it's hard to say, isn't it? But I don't think he's as spriteful as he was and as fast as he was when he was when he come to Everton first of all. How long has he been with us now? About 5 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Setting him into a deeper position is concerning for me as well, because I just don't think he's good enough to do that. And look, you can have a degree of sympathy with him, because for us, he's basically played as a 10 most of the time. He's been that sort of catalyst for us to score goals as well. Think of Bournemouth last day of the season and all that sort of thing that kept us in the league. I've always been a big fan of Decore. There's a point where you have to look at a player and think, you know what, there's limitations here. And when you have to set him back into a midfield area, particularly against the side that, I mean, Joel Linton, I think is a really interesting player to look at in how he's developed a career. When he was initially brought in as a ridiculously priced striker, he's a really good midfielder now. And look, credit to him. The fact he's a really good midfielder and the fact that he's got the two lads in and around him, they're in a 4-3-3. Like you say, that can easily bypass our midfield there if you do not get that right. I don't think we have a good enough midfield to be able to compete against what they have. I think obviously the league table in the last couple of seasons show that in what they've gone and done. So this is where Dyche needs to be a little bit more coy about this. He needs to find a solution to how they're not going to be coming at us all the time, because Crystal Palace is one thing if they're coming at you and they have more possession and you're able to sort of absorb that and turn things around and go on a counter-attack. Newcastle are a completely different animal than that. And I know we're sitting here like probably giving them far too much credit and thinking that Newcastle are probably going to go win the league and, you know, go win the Champions League or the Europa, what they're in these days. But you need to pay respect of what we're facing here. And that's where I think you bring Goodison back into things as well, as I think, because you go and win a game, the expectation lifts immediately. You know, we've just said, the pair of us there, we'd take a point. Many of our listeners will be saying, you're having a laugh, aren't you? We've just gone and got 3 points. We've got to be going, take the juggernaut here. We've got to go and get these and beat them 2 or 3-0 at Goodison and just keep this going. This isn't an Everton side that has that ability, in my opinion.
This is my worry, though. So the best way to get the crowd on side is to attack and get those early shots in and stuff. I mean, I'm second guessing him here, but I can fully see him. The way he's going to mitigate that like attack and threat in midfield that Newcastle have got, he'll do his low block. He will defend the width of the area like we did against Villa. He'll invite those crosses in from wide. Now, you've got Brandwaite in there with Tarkowski. Instantly second half, both look better. Both back to that really good partnership. So it's not going to be as much concern as it was in the earlier games when Michael Keane and Tarkowski were playing together. Pickford also came out, got a few high claims in the second half. So it looked like everyone settled down that second half. So I think that's how he'll play. He'll basically invite the pressure on from Newcastle, get the ball out wide, get the crosses in, we'll clear them, and it'll just be that constant pattern. But that's not a way to get the crowd on side of Goodison. If they keep pressuring us, it'll just make us more tetchy. And as you say, games like this, you don't go all out guns blazing and just like go for it like for 90 minutes. But I think to get a good start and really try and attack them at the start to get the crowd up, I think that's vital. And I don't know, I've got to worry that it won't be like that.
We're a very different animal at home, aren't we? Everton backs against the wall. One of the best sides you see in maybe not in recent seasons, but I think that's been something that we've been comfortable with. Everton come to the fore when they absolutely need to. They don't start games off. They don't go in the front foot on many occasions. Ironically, we have this season and haven't won a game. And that's something that we all need to. I've spoke a lot about Goodison so far this season and the sort of mentality behind it. And each game's interested me in the mentality. You could probably write an essay on this at the end of the season in terms of how we've changed our approach to watching our side and how we feel towards how they start it, how they attack, how they don't do it enough, and all that sort of thing. That comes to what we're discussing, which is what we're doing right now, isn't it? Really, but you need to see something a bit deeper than that. There's a lot of things are submerged when we go to Goodison about the most crucial aspects of a game, and I feel that with the manager we have, isn't the right fit for that, shall we say, politely. The connection between him and Everton fans at Goodison is worlds apart, in my opinion, because I think first 5, first 10, not even if they don't score, even if they have more possession, even they've had a couple of chances, a couple of crosses in, and we haven't done it ourselves yet at the other end, that is when Goodison becomes tetchy. And therefore, I don't think Sean Dyche has the ability to change that himself too quickly. Let's say that again, to be polite. I think you're looking at a game that there has to be a lot of patience here in what Everton go and do. We're not renowned for that. We're not renowned for patience whatsoever. Most home sides aren't, are they? But you need to look at that opponent there and feel that if we're not able to stay that lower block like you're talking about there, people need to understand, I think, that is when Newcastle are going to be at the best if Everton don't do that, because you're just leaving a gap wide open for really good players to come at you, get the ball into wider places. Then look, and I know Everton, or he would regard Everton at the best. I'm pretty sure we would in most aspects of games where we should be fine when crosses come in because you've got two giant centre halves, you've got Branthwaite back. Everton should be able to deal with that. You know, you're looking at Branthwaite instead of Keane, who again he keeps on talking about, even though he isn't even playing, he's still banging on. Excuse me. So the aspects are there for Everton to get into a comfortable position to start that game there, and let's see what it goes like from there. Good enough to defend out Newcastle if we play a little bit deeper in those blocks that you're talking about there. Midfield there is crucial. I think that's head and shoulders above everything else there that Everton have to sort out. Forward line, and Dyche there, you could even play him just behind Calvert-Lewin if you want to put that extra midfielder in and don't have a Lindstrom or a Jack Harrison there. Like you say, you can pull McNeil back a little bit as well. There's scope there to really put something that outnumbers what they've got in midfield, and then that'll frustrate them. As that game goes on, then you can perhaps look at, you're turning them around, and then, it expose them a little bit for what they are, rather than sitting on the top of the halfway line against us looking to go forward all the time.
Yeah, well, that is the good thing. We have got options, so we'll see how that plays out the weekend. Just for the last 5 minutes, just want to talk a little bit about the new ground. What we're going to talk about, it's not the most interesting thing, but the council have announced plans for a football match parking zone at the new ground. There's going to be changes to sand hills, I think, where they're going to have, it sounds like it's going to be a holding area, doesn't it, for fans? So anyone who's been to Sandhills will know it's a really, really tiny train station. It's just got a single platform with one set of stairs down the middle. So if that's going to be the sort of main go-to point for fans getting off to go to the game, it's going to get packed. So I think they're looking to make changes to that. And there's going to be a shuttle service, I think, from Lime Street and Bootle. So there might be a George Sherry's pick up there, Dave. You never know.
They should have their own little kiosk there, just waiting. You know what I mean? That'd be ideal for them. I'm going to ask them.
We need to make it happen. I'm trying to get the Chongqing to get a concession at Brandon. I think it's like all these plans are getting put in place to sort of make getting to the game a little bit easier, less congested, because that is the worry. It's just on one road, isn't it? Us, our long dwellers, think they're missing the trick by not having a boat going to the game, because there's loads of parking. There's loads of parking over our side where you could do a park and ride and have a ferry just going an hour before and an hour after. So there's lots of other options, but I think people are getting a little bit concerned that it's going to be a bit of a nightmare to get to. My feeling is that it's not a bad walk from town now. I think it's half an hour from Liverpool 1. You could probably get there in about 20 minutes from James Street or Moorfields if you go down Old Hall Street. So I think there are a lot of options there if people go to different places in town. So if a lot of people are going to town beforehand, I think there's a lot of options to get there without congestion stuff. There'll be taxis going there as well. What are you feeling about moving there? How's that going to impact your sort of pre-match routine? How different it's going to be?
Yeah, because being an original Bootleism, Bootle, whatever it is you say that I am from Bootle initially. Obviously, it'd be a lot more comfortable going into town from there than it would be from the opposite end, but you'd have got options. I think what the club, I would like to think, should be doing is opening their eyes to various opportunities they may have with sorting this. I'll let you mention there, ferry across, and do a bit of study on how many fans are coming over, how many fans will be going through the tunnel. You can do that, get them straight onto our side of the river. And then also the other thing that it'll be a big aspect for them, a big test for them, is if people are coming in from town, which I presume the majority of fans will be coming in from town. Great opportunity for fans, and it's great for us. You go for a pint in town, have something to eat in town, then walk down to the game. I think Everton won't be content about that because they want to get them to the ground so they're able to consume the revenue from everyone that's probably throwing it into town. The other thing, the criticism of it, Les, is how late this come, by the way. How late is this? I mean, maybe it's just the council, but the club itself should have been coming out with things like this. Sandhills, Sandhills needs massive changes, and that's not going to happen before this side of August next season when we're playing our first game. There's no chance of that happening. So this has come far too late. Ideas, welcome, but it's finished in a couple of months, isn't it? The ground itself's actually finished. They'll be doing all sorts of these various experiments and stuff like that. Sandhills, I mean, you're looking at various getting into Kirkdale. Walk down from Kirkdale is a little bit more bigger than Sandhills. I think it's funny. You're more looking at the direction you go into Goodison, and then just turning around and going the other way.
It could be actually good. Yeah,
you know what I mean. I actually really like Sandhills because the walk down is obviously the massive hill down there. There's a fantastic view of the stadium when you're doing that. So that walk is really nice. Obviously, initially, when we first go there, the excitement, getting pictures, all that sort of thing would be great. But there are some serious issues there. Getting a car park zone, whatever it is, there's a pricing issue as well, isn't it? I mean, when I parked your side of the ground now there on the park end next to the school, that was, I think, 15 quid a game. Obviously, you can't park around the street. There's no street in and around there. I think those industrial estates in and around the ground there are just going to be inundated with various people. I bet you, 10 to a penny, I'd do it if I had the business there. Come and park your car here, 10 a game. That sort of thing as well is another aspect. And obviously within less of a year than we get there now, the fact that we're only hearing these things now is a massive concern. Less, and I think, the club, obviously we don't know beneath what we're able to speak right now about it, but the club should have been doing this a long, long time ago. If we're only getting stuff out from the council now saying we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, that you'd have to presume that Everton haven't really been in touch with them up until this position. So it remains to be seen the way in which they do it. But I think the positive side of it, there are a lot of options they can go down with this. Negative side of it is, do you see us being able to go to Bramley-Moore in a year's time? Very, very debatable. I'm a little bit skeptical about whether we're able to do that in the first coming months. How long do you think it takes to change a train station?
Oh, take 8. I mean, there's quite a bit of land around Sandhills, isn't there? But it's like you can't
changing all sorts though, Les, aren't you?
You can't just build a pen on the side of a train station and say to everyone, right, you all wait there and just filter people through. That's no way to do it. I mean, to be honest,
shuttle bus we did mention there. I think that covers a lot of bases. I think a shuttle bus. Obviously from Sefton side, I think that's a win for them straight away. If you do a shuttle bus from there, you've got your season ticket, scan on, you can go. Pretty simple because you're going along the Dock Road. Coming from that side, there's mounds of space. It's the other side that is the issue.
Yeah, I think I'd say if you can, I reckon just walking to and from town's your best option. I mean, it's going to be nice in August and May, not so nice in like December and January. That could be a horrible walk. But I think that's
the club don't like that though, Les. That the club, this is where I'm critical of them. They should have arranged the time here or something else that can get fans encouraged to go to Bramley-Moore before they go. Before me and yourself are going into town at, I don't know, 11 o'clock in the morning. They've done that. I mean, when I went to the live buildings, they were explaining these kinds of things, and I think they were saying you can get in like 3-4 hours before the game, go to the bar, you can have something to eat there.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. And at the other end after the game as well, they're doing that exact same thing, keeping people where they need in order to get the revenue in. Start of games, mate. If you said to me, "Oh, the pub at Bramley Moor is open at 11 versus Town," there's only one winner, and it's Town, because there's a million different places you can go to. Transfer, it's certainly moving there wise, getting able to travel wise, miles easier to get into Town than it's going to be getting to Bramley Moor. So there's a big challenge there that need to get sorted quite quickly, I think.
Yeah, and also I think we touched upon this last time we spoke about the ground. You've got to get the pricing right, because bevies aren't cheap in Town, but you can get cheap bevies in Town. If you go to the ground and you're spending £7 a pint or £6 for a bottle or whatever it is at Goodison, something stupid like that, people just won't do it. So that's a big thing as well, getting the price points right, making sure I'm not just going to say beer, I'm going to say overall refreshments are like a decent quality and decent choice, and the food as well. Don't just serve us roll over hot dogs and piping hot pies. We want a bit more choice, else people will just go to Town. I think if they get that right, that's a big plus for them to get people in.
It's huge to get money in as well, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's a massive factor of getting revenue in.
There are not many businesses who've got 40,000 people who are guaranteed to go there every other week. There's not many businesses that can claim that. So they've got quite an easy job really to get them in. I think as you say as well with the shuttle bus, just have more pickup points throughout Town. The soccer bus goes from Sandhills to the ground now. So that's another option. If you don't want to get off at Kirkdale and walk up, just get off at Sandhills, get the soccer bus up. Have a few of them around Town. I think that starts at the there's a soccer bus from by Lime Street, isn't there? At the roundabout by the Empire as well. So have a few of them, various points around Town, even not even city centre, just out into the further city.
They could do that. What you're saying there, sorry to interrupt. What you're saying there about the soccer bus is you could go from Lime Street, and you could almost do a full circuit of going towards Goodison, going back down through just the edge of Bootle, down into the Dock Road, and you've got mounds of space in the Dock Road where people might want to drop off early. Therefore, you're going to see bars made and all that. You see various businesses who are going to be operating things and opening things up for us to go to. All of that is a big win for me. If you go round, if you just add that as a circuit, repeated every, soccer buses about every, 15, 20 minutes, if you could do that, I think then that it makes it really, really easy coming in from around that side of the city. Whereas the other option is you go to wherever you want in the city centre and then walk in. I think that gives everyone a bit of variety for what they want to do. They can change it up in games and whatnot. But club-wise, that issue remains of getting them in there and getting them to pay the club, and that includes prices, which is probably top of that list for all of us as fans. You're not encouraged to get in Goodison Park if you can still get a pint for less than £5 in Town versus £7-8 plus ridiculous to get a pie at Goodison. And I know they're banging on about the amount of different restaurants and options that are going to be, different bars called Howard's Way and all these different things. They're doing fantastic ideas. Get Everton fans there is the initial issue here. I'm sure at the start, everyone's going to be, this is amazing. And we all go in and you'll see the first few games, people are like, oh, I'm always going to do this. I'm always going to do that. But then you start thinking, do you know what? It's a bit cheaper up the road there. A mile walk. Can't really keep up with paying these ridiculous prices at Bramley Moor. The other thing as well, the other factor you could throw into it, Les, is if you're a season ticket holder, you get a certain discount, or just encourage things like that. You've got certain amount of tickets. There are loads of things that I'd like to think that they're considering right now. But the fact the council are coming out with this now, Les, is a bit of a concern for me that we're there in less than a year's time. Especially changing Sandhills is just making me laugh more and more.
I know it's a big infrastructure project, isn't it? So just quickly, just before we go on the pricing thing, I just had a thought there. It's I think Goodison's cashless now, isn't it? Which is not something I particularly agree with, because some people don't have bank cards that they can just tap and pay. It's just a fact that some people do need to use cash.
I'm preferred.
But one way around that for the club would be to have the season tickets double up as a debit card for the game, like a Squid. Have you ever used a Squid card where you load it up when you pay on it? It's used
with a million different one types
of that. Yeah. I mean, that would be one option, wouldn't it? You load up your season ticket with a tenner or something. You get a discount if you use your season ticket to pay. and just tap that.
Great
So
shout.
if you have, if you haven't got like a card, but you have got a season ticket, you can do that. Or if you don't, there's a lot of options there that you just hope
Points against stuff and all that sort of thing.
There's a lot of things you could do there, like imaginative, to keep us engaged, basically. So hopefully you've thought of all this. You won't have done, but it'd be nice to think they have.
Just before we finish, you think of us doing the post-match podcast? Obviously, we go to Denby and all that, but they be encouraging people, or should be encouraging people. That sort of thing is why maybe you do like our sort of YouTube thing. Say, for instance, do the quick response to the game for a couple of minutes that we put at the start of the post-match, and everyone's back at the Denby. And does it, like you say, there's so many. And what we're talking about now is increasingly getting more positive to think about these sort of things, because there are a few things where you're looking at thinking, wow, this could be a really good idea. Do you trust Everton to hit the right note there? Not so sure, but it remains to be seen, doesn't it?
Well, just on that, I was speaking to Gavin Buckland on Twitter, and he reckons we should have a podcast in the section at the new ground, which I'm all for. With free ale and free food. But we'll see. You never know.
Everton will still be turning us away. Don't worry about that. Get out now.
Yeah, we won't get out of that paper. Cheers for that, Dave. Nice one. Thanks to everyone for listening. Let us know what you think in the comments. Obviously, subscribe, like us, and do all that caper. It all helps. But let us know what you think about the Newcastle game coming up, the Villa game still, because it's still fresh in our minds because it was a nice win, and what you think about the new ground and the proposals about getting there and all that we'll just talk about. Thanks again for listening on Blue Monday. We'll be on a Wednesday. We'll be back with other stuff later in the week. Up the toffees.